In one of the darkest periods of human history, Viktor Frankl survived the horrors of Auschwitz, Dachau, and other Nazi concentration camps. He witnessed the worst of humanity. He saw men lose everything: family, dignity, identity. He saw bodies become numbers, lives reduced to mere survival. And even there, amidst hunger, pain, and death, he identified something surprising. Some managed to keep the spark of life, not because they were physically stronger nor luckier, but for a much deeper reason. They still had a why. Frankl realized that those who had a clear sense, something or someone to live for, a purpose greater than themselves, were the ones who resisted psychological collapse. He called this the will to meaning and made this idea the heart of his psychotherapeutic approach: logotherapy. For Frankl, human beings are not motivated, as Freud said, by the pursuit of pleasure, nor, as Adler suggested, by the pursuit of power. The deepest drive of human beings is to find meaning in their existence. When that meaning is lacking, existential emptiness arises. The same emptiness we today camouflage with distractions, toxic productivity, and incessant stimuli. The most impressive aspect of Frankl's work is the realization that meaning can be found even in pain. Even in extreme suffering, there is room for dignity, for choice, for transcendence. Life never ceases to have meaning, he said, even in the face of inevitable suffering. This completely challenges the modern logic that we need to be well to produce, that we need to be motivated to act. Frankl reverses this. Often, it is by acting with meaning that we rediscover strength. Purpose is not a luxury. It is a basic psychological need. This understanding changes everything. If motivation depends on meaning, then its absence is not a sign of weakness, but of disconnection from what truly matters. And this disconnection is intensified when we live for empty goals, status, social validation, numbers, appearances. Frankl invites us to ask another question. What am I living for? Not how to have more energy, but why is it worth getting out of bed? Not how to be more productive, but what truly moves me. In his words, man is capable of enduring any how, as long as he has a why. And that why does not need to be something grand. It can be a child, a personal mission, an ideal, even a simple task, but lived with authenticity. The essential thing is that it is genuine, that it comes from within, that it connects you to something greater than the immediacy of now. But how to rediscover this meaning in a life taken over by noise, distractions, and pressures? How to make space for this reconnection to happen? In the next part, we will explore exactly that: the power of silence, pause, and discomfort as gateways to a life with more purpose and presence. In a society where the absence of stimulation is almost seen as a threat, talking about silence sounds like heresy. Silence confronts us. It forces us to listen to what we have been avoiding: our most chaotic thoughts, our most repressed pains, our most uncomfortable questions. And yet, it is precisely in this seemingly hostile territory that the key to reconnecting with what truly matters resides. The modern human has been conditioned to fear emptiness. They cannot stand waiting, cannot tolerate being alone, do not know how to simply be. But this emptiness, this space unfilled by stimuli, is not a mistake. It is an invitation. An invitation to pause, observe, reorganize. Because it is only when the noise ceases that we can hear the voice of consciousness. It is only when the excess dissolves that the essential can emerge. Frankl said that life demands a response from each of us. But to respond, one must first listen. And listening in this saturated world has become a forgotten art. We are so accustomed to the constant flow of information, opinions, and external expectations that we have become deaf to our own inner call. This call is not loud nor spectacular. It is subtle, whispered in the gap between one thought and another, and it can only be captured when we create space for silence. Turning off the phone, refusing another task, saying no to what is not essential. All of this may seem uncomfortable at first, but this discomfort is a sign that you are stepping out of the automatic. It is a harbinger of clarity, because before motivation comes silence, before aligned action comes honest listening, and before purpose comes the confrontation with what you have been avoiding. And yes, silence can be disconcerting. It can expose insecurities, doubts, resentments, but it can also reveal forgotten values, authentic desires, unexplored directions. The discomfort we feel in the absence of stimulation is not the enemy. It is the beginning of the reintegration process. It is in this space that the soul, previously stifled by the rush and noise, begins to whisper truths we have ignored for too long. As Viktor Frankl wrote, each of us has to find, in his own life, a unique meaning, a mission that is his. No life can be replaced. No destiny can be repeated. Each one is irreplaceable. But how to hear this mission? How to recognize this call if we never stop to listen? In the next and final part, we will address the most essential step: how to transform this silence into meaningful action. How to emerge from apathy, not through external stimulation, but through authentic expression of an internal purpose. Because true motivation arises when we stop fleeing and finally choose to live with intention. There comes a moment when you can no longer continue living on autopilot. A moment when the emptiness speaks louder than distraction, when fatigue cannot be relieved by another video, another scroll, another task. This is the moment of rupture. And paradoxically, it is also the starting point. Because it is when we stop seeking outside what can only be found within that we finally begin to move in the right direction. True motivation is not loud. It does not come with easy promises or ready-made formulas. It does not arise from the desire to please others, to meet external goals, or to follow imposed standards. It emerges when you come into contact with what is non-negotiable within you, with your deepest values, with your forgotten dreams, with your rawest truth. It is a silent but relentless force, a spark that, once ignited, completely transforms the way you act in the world. And this does not require heroism. It does not demand grand gestures or radical changes. It starts with the simple, with turning off the noise, with an honest look at yourself, with the small act of saying, "This no longer serves me," with the movement of going against the chaos, of stopping the frantic running in all directions and beginning to walk inward. Because it is in this internal space that purpose takes shape. It is there that you begin to act not out of obligation, but out of meaning. Not out of impulse, but by choice. Not to escape, but to express who you truly are. Demotivation is not a flaw. It is an invitation, a call to stop living on the surface and dive into what is real. A sign that it is time to reconnect, to make silence, to regain your own presence, to act with intention. Viktor Frankl survived hell and emerged from it with a powerful truth. Everything can be taken from a man except one thing, the last of the human freedoms: to choose his attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose his own way. You still have that freedom, even now, and you can use it to interrupt the cycle of superficiality and begin a new narrative. One where you are no longer at the mercy of stimuli, but guided by purpose. If this message resonated with you, tell us in the comments, what will you leave behind starting today? What noise will you silence to hear your own voice? And if this made sense to you, keep watching. The next video is also important. It may be exactly what you need to hear right now, because the path to a purposeful life does not end here. It is just beginning.